Do you have a hobby? Something you enjoy in your spare time? Have you ever tried to turn it into a side hustle? Join Megan and I as we reminisce on the time we turned our passion for wedding design into a full-blown wedding planning and design business. We dissect the concept of monetizing a hobby and why it might not be all it's cracked up to be. Whether it's pressure on Instagram or just the idea of making a little extra cash, we admit it's tempting. However, by the end of the episode, we both agree we all need something we do just for ourselves, just for enjoyment, no obligations or strings attached. Let's get into it.
Hi, Salem.
Hey, Megan.
Here we go again.
I know, here we are. How are you doing?
I am great. I am great.
Good. So today we're talking about hobbies
Mm.
and the quickest and easiest way to ruin a hobby.
I think we have some experience in that.
And I would go as far as to say that we're really good at it.
Mm. Probably experts at this point. We've probably put, I think it's like 10,000 hours to be a master at it. We've probably done that. Yeah. We're masters at ruining
Easily.
hobbies.
Easily.
Ah.
We easily fall into that category. Um, yeah. So yeah, we're gonna dig into it.
Man, maybe I should have brought like a tequila with me to do this discussion instead of a LaCroix. We need to talk. I need my drink, and I don't have one. So let's do it. Let's talk about hobbies and how to
Okay.
ruin them.
Yeah. So, okay, let's start out. What is a hobby, right? Like, let's kind of define that first. So, I mean, if you look it up, a hobby is a regular activity that is done for enjoyment, typically in your free time, like in your spare time, or we call it your leisure time, if there is such a thing, right?
Yeah.
And it could be anything from like collecting things, or like creative things, whether it's like drawing, painting, cross stitching, like, anything creative, or even like sports, playing an instrument. Like those are some of the classic examples, right?
Yeah. I feel like we literally check every single one of those boxes in some form or fashion, right? Like we're collectors. We do things for fun. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm following. I'm following.
Even the instrument, like I've got one of those too. So yeah, like I think you and I took collectively, we could easily check all those stereotypical boxes.
Yeah.
Um, but
We're well
I want to.
rounded.
Why, yes. Why, yes. Yes, we are.
Well rounded.
So let's talk about like hobbies in general. Like, what are some of your hobbies right now?
Do moms get hobbies? I feel like that's $1 million question. What are my hobbies right now? Salem, I don't know. How about you go first? I need to think about that one a little longer. It's like a long pause because we're sitting here thinking, what are our hobbies?
Well, in theory, could say that I have a lot of hobbies, right?
Reading. I like to read.
Oh, that is. And you're in a book club, right?
Yes, yes, I do
Okay.
love to read, and that is probably dedicated space without any type of expectation other than a book to be complete. A hobby for me is reading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I read my devotion every night. I don't know that you'd really call that a hobby. I don't think it should be in the hobby category. But that is probably the only thing I have zero expectations for. But even that, like, that might not even be true as far as not having expectations. So, um, I don't know. I think I struggle with the whole concept of a hobby, things that you just do for pure fun. And I think it's because my mind has just gotten so twisted over the years.
Mm.
And that's what we're here to talk about, is how easily how easy you can ruin something that's meant for pure joy
Yeah.
by trying to monetize it, period.
Yeah. I would really like to, a hobby I would like to add to my portfolio of hobbies, that one that I have, is gardening. Like I would love to figure out how to garden better. Just not there yet. It seems like a really big commitment.
It kind of is. That's why my garden is now planted with grass.
Another hobby down the hole.
Yeah, it got smaller and smaller and smaller, and then now it's just two small raised beds.
Yes. Yes. So yeah. Well, let's dive into how we've ruined some hobbies. How about that?
Yeah, yeah.
We're good at that.
Well,
We're better at that than having some.
yeah. I mean, I could definitely say that I'm like interested in things, right? Like I have
Yes.
interests and I have things that I'm good at. And most of the time I try to combine those,
Alignment. Yeah.
you know, and I think it's just hard, especially these days as moms to even find time for something that's for pure enjoyment. It's like we're trying to multitask and combine it with all these other things. Like, oh, I enjoy this, but I also need to do this. And so then it becomes like this combined event or this
Yeah.
combined activity. But anyway, okay. So you recently, though, went on this sort of like, you went from it, you took this idea from an interest into more of a, and it may have been a hobby at first, but then it transitioned into a side hustle.
Yes. I think you're talking about the wedding planning. Is that what you're talking about? Okay. That's we're jumping right in. Yes. Let's
We're
do it.
let's not waste any time. Let's talk
Let's
about the
not.
hobbies that we've really had some fun with.
Yes. Yes. So the wedding planning thing, wow, it feels like it was a lifetime ago at this point, even though we just winded that down probably in the last few years. Um, isn't that crazy? Yes. So wedding planning, I think has it stemmed originally from my hobby of design to begin with, right? But I
Right.
kept seeing this. Well, first of all, I had this issue when I was getting married long time ago. And then every person after me that I was involved in their weddings, because there was that season of our life that everybody was getting married. And there were patterns of problems. And I was like, I can solve these problems through a wedding planning business, meaning that like I'm great at organization. I know exactly how a system should be ran, which a wedding essentially is a system. Planning it at least is. The day of can even be a system. And also, I can throw in this element of design because I'm interested in it and I'm pretty good at it. Oh, but wait, I also have a best friend that's like amazing at it. So let me just pull her in with me. And lo and behold, who's that friend? She's sitting here with me today at Salem, in case you didn't know.
We're all going down with the ship. It's like as you're
Yes. So my natural ability to apply systems to anything in life, and my interest for design, and my best friend who is skilled and interested in design. And then I was like, yep, we're going to do this. We're going to form the business, the LLC. We're going to get us some clients. And we did. We freaking rode that train hard, did we not? We were planning weddings. We were executing on weddings. We did some really freaking amazing weddings too. I mean, hopefully we talk about a couple of examples, but
I mean, you say we, but it was really mostly you. Like
mm,
I was more or less just like an assistant at best. But yeah, so it was so that the wedding planning is a perfect example, and we can like we're gonna really dig into it because it's an entertaining example and perfect demonstration. But you know, you think about all the things that you're interested in, and even then, like I didn't have kids at that time, and you know, in theory, I had free time. I was working full time, but I had time to do stuff. And you think about all of your interests and you're like, Well, and I think social media really plays a huge role in the pressure that you feel sometimes to like, oh my gosh, you know what? I can do this. I see other people doing it. Or like I know that I can produce something just as beautiful or better by applying my skills and experience. Like let's just, let's go from just enjoying design to really making it something, right?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of like how it started, and then it morphed into the wedding planning business.
Yeah. Yeah. It did. I went from I can help people and it can be an easier day for them because that was really the goal. It's like people should not be this stressed on their wedding day, or they should not be this stressed planning it. It's really just a simple checklist, but sometimes people need a little help with the design part of it because not everybody has that eye for something that's going to be unique and special to them. And I felt like that was something we brought to the table on top of having an easy system to follow.
Hmm.
Um, but that spiraled quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. At first, we were doing, well, I just remember like the big thing that like put you, I'm gonna still say you. I mean, I know that it was us, but it was really you on the map was that styled shoot. And I
Mm,
remember it was like during the summertime or something. It was on a Sunday, and it was like multiple stations, multiple
yes.
multiple models, and tons of and quite a few photographers. I mean, I thought it was very successful,
Yeah,
that styled shoot.
it was actually something we were testing because we were talking about creating a workshop with some other photographers and that we were in the stage of like how do we monetize this even further, and it was like, well, this is how we showcase what we can do so that people can capture with, because photographers of course they have their services, but they also build their portfolios off of styled shoots where they can really showcase their attention to detail, or those pictures you see in magazines and on Pinterest. Those aren't always weddings. A lot of times they're styled shoots because they need the time and the ability, but also these interesting designs because sometimes wedding venues don't have all of these unique things like cowhides or low sitting tables like couples tables and the florals that some of these florists give. Like not most wedding venues don't provide those things, so you create styled shoots where you can really showcase your skill, whether it be design, florals, or photography. And yeah, that was the first big one because we had several photographers there and they were just like, oh my God, I want to work with you all the time. I was like, yes,
Yeah.
this is amazing.
Yeah. Well, and the styled shoot like that, I feel, and I don't have as much experience in the whole industry or anything, but I like my impression was the styled shoot. That's where you really get to like get creative and try stuff, and that's where a lot of the trends are actually. That's where they originate is
Yep.
at a styled shoot when you're trying something different, and you don't really have anything to lose. You're not having to convince a bride to do something risky. You're just, giving it, you're trying it in a safer, I guess, safer space. Um, but the style shoot, I mean, yeah, we had a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where I think we did that prior to, I've seen the trend happen now, like where especially destination weddings where people are wearing the big hats with the big hat energy and they're pulling in cowhides and they're pulling in very intimate scenes, and it all stems from that, and we did that so many years ago. So it's
Yeah.
like, and you know that styled shoot did make it into I think a couple magazines or something like that. So heck.
Yeah. For a couple of photographers for
Hell,
sure.
that might have been us, Salem. You never know. We'll never know though, will we?
No, because like you said earlier, it spiraled quickly.
Hmm.
It spiraled quickly. And, you know, it's hard to even just to think back because yes, we were doing, I mean, before I started working with you, I helped Kaylee. Um, and she started Thistle and Twig in Morganton. But before that, she just did florals like on the side a little bit. She was a stay-at-home mom, and I knew her from my first job right out of college. That's how I met her. And then every now and then she would need just like an extra set of hands. And her sister is usually the person like she would have do that, but she lived, I think she does still does, but she lived in Ohio at the time. And so she would call me and say, "Hey, I need an extra pair of hands. Can you come help me set up for this event?" And so I did that a couple of times before I started helping you. And so that's where I really kind of got a feel for, oh, this is, this is fun. I had set up for like vendor fair, like craft fairs. So I'd set up my own stuff for like small, tiny little events.
We
And
did
that's
those
always,
together too. Oh, we did one of those together
yes,
too.
we did. Yeah, we did. Oh my
Oh my
gosh, I
gosh.
forgot about that.
Wow.
Yes. So yeah, we have a long history. But so just like the setup for events, like that was kind of like where I fit in because I wasn't necessarily the systems person, and I can be more of the customer service person if I have to, but that was really like the setup and the tear down and like the creativity side of it and just making sure everything looks good for photographs. Like
Yeah.
that was, I felt like more my strength than the systems. But that's where I got started was with her, and I just did it for fun. And like I said, I had free time, and of course she did pay me for some of that time, but it's not like it was like a lucrative thing. It was just like a little extra side money,
And
and which was
she's a great example of somebody who turned her side hustle into the full thing, and she's incredible.
yes.
You should definitely check her out. What is her name of her business again? Salem?
Yeah, it's called Thistle and Twig, and it's in Morganton, North Carolina, but she is incredibly talented.
Yeah, hands down.
Incredibly
It's
talented. I
beautiful.
mean, everything she does is extremely beautiful, very organic,
Hmm.
not the traditional bouquets. And I mean, she did my wedding, I mean, all those years ago. I mean, that was,
Yeah.
what year was that? 2012?
Yes.
Yeah, 2012. And I mean, it was just stunning then. And so her style has just evolved and it's been beautiful to watch.
Yeah. So the wedding planning company, we did that, spiraled very quickly. Um, and it was a lot of fun, but it did come to this frictional moment of like, okay, what are we really doing? Are we going to commit and go all in? Or is this not the thing or the time? Where, you know, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, okay, how many weddings did you do total?
Oh, I should have had those numbers off the top of my head, but it was several. I mean, total, I was probably between the 15 to 20 range within like 2.5 years.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, when did the business officially start? Like what year?
When did I create when did I form the LLC?
Was it
Oh,
2020?
you're asking so many hard questions. Um, no, I think it was 2019 is when I actually formed the LLC,
Okay.
but I had been doing it off, like off the books, but as a side hustle hobby, really just helping people previously. I think I
Yeah.
started when my sister-in-law had gotten married, and that had to be, I mean, my girls were tiny, so that was several years before that.
Right. So you're helping people. It's fun. You're enjoying it. People seem to be getting a value out of the help that you're giving. You feel good about it. You're enjoying it. The spare
Hmm.
time that you have is going towards that. You have small kids, but it's working, and it's in that kind of sweet spot, like hobby, but could it be more
Yeah.
place? And then you go ahead and you start the business. You're like, you know what? Nope, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to start the business. And then kind of what happens from there? Like you start to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah, I started seeing success. I knew when it started compounding and the weddings were coming in and the bookings were coming in, I was like, okay, I truly have to make a decision on if I'm going to give this a shot, because I knew it could be something that I could transition into long term. but there was something I hadn't taken into consideration quite in that moment, which is okay. That happens. Is I did have small kids, and so it was easy to do because they were not involved in extracurricular activities, or weren't quite in school yet. Maybe my youngest was in kindergarten, but they were really playing just like small things, like even if they were in rec. I don't even know if they were in rec yet at that moment, rec ball. But I hadn't taken into consideration weddings are always the weekends most of the time. And even if it was just my own full-time job and I was off during the week and could be home more often, I wouldn't be there on the weekends. And
Right.
so that I had to sit with that for a little bit. And like that was the moment for me that was kind of like, I can definitely turn this into a very healthy and lucrative like direction for my life and probably be pretty good at it. And have a bigger team and add more people because people were starting to want to be a part on the team, and had a couple
Mm-hmm.
people I was paying to help. And yeah, it was that moment where I was like, I have to make the decision, not just for my kids, but my husband too, and my family is, do I want to not be home 2 to 3 weekends a month? Almost every month of the year, even if I take 1 month off out of the year.
Yeah.
And I had tested that theory of not doing July weddings and having that month off, like that final year of it.
Yeah.
And it still made the decision pretty easy for me considering where I'm at every weekend now in my current life season, right? Which is not
Yeah.
at weddings. It's at the soccer field or the basketball courts or junior assembly dance. So, spoiler alert, I did not continue that path.
Yeah. So it all of it really escalated quickly. Like the success, but then also like the craziness of your home life at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes,
Yeah.
it was successful, but then it really kind of got out of, I don't want to say out of control because you're always in control, but it just really got hard to manage doing both of them, having, well, all three things, the full-time job, the like could be potential full-time job of the side hustle, and then of course your home life.
Yeah. Yeah. You in life, whatever you're doing, whether it be like a side hustle, because the thing is whether if you're working a full-time job, a side hustle is not just a side hustle, it's another job. So it could be part-time, it could be full-time, but it's still a job, even as a side hustle. So now your time is competing with each other with both of your jobs. But then you have another train over here, which is called like your family or your personal life. And I mean, moms are who are typically listen to us, and working moms are. So I had these three trains slowly going, but they weren't going parallel. They were slowly, coming together and colliding. And I mean, there just had to be a like a Holy Spirit moment, like a come to Jesus moment of like, okay, now this is where the rubber meets the road before the train crashes and blows up.
Yeah, and one of them's got to go.
Yes. Yes.
One of them has to go. So, okay, let's go back to like hobbies in general. Like, do you think that there's like a societal pressure to like monetize a skill or a hobby? Or do you think that's just more or less like our personalities?
Hmm. Can the answer be both?
I'm sure, I feel sure it can. Yeah.
It's really funny because I do think it's a society. I think it's a thing in our society now, because I even think about like our generations before us, like our parents and our grandparents, like they did not do those things. Like I go back and I think about my grandmother who baked all the time, and she would bake goods, or like another thing that they had all these pecan trees in their property. And I'm talking they would harvest pecans every year, and not just a little bit of pecans, but 5-gallon buckets of pecans, or even muscadine grapes, like, and make wine. But they never monetized that. They seriously only did it for hobbies. But the thing I think now is society and social media, especially, is kind of like anything can make you a dollar, but you always have to trade that dollar in for something else. And so
Right.
you kind of have to decide what your currency is in that moment. Um, So I think it's a little bit of a society thing for sure, and an expectation of when you hop on Instagram and you see this person saying, I'm just an ambassador making six figures a month. Just kidding. I know that's not realistic, but some of them would say, like, I make six figures a month in just an ambassador for this brand, or seven figures. I guess seven figures is more realistic of what they say. Anywho, but then there's also a personality, a thing for success in us. We're driven to be successful and achieve something that we can call our own.
Right.
And I think that's also a side effect of our generation a little bit.
I agree with that. I agree with that
Yeah.
too. Yeah, and well, and I even think like the word monetize, like when did that really originate? I mean, you didn't. I feel like it's only recently kind of come onto the radar as like this new buzzword that's very popular. If you accidentally or intentionally get in on those types of posts, and your algorithm now becomes and your feed becomes filled with all these like side hustle um, posts, whether you're on Instagram, Twitter, wherever, um, that word monetize gets thrown around like no big deal. It's everywhere. Like
Yeah.
monetize this, monetize that. Like you shouldn't have hobbies for pure joy. You should be monetizing them, or you could be monetizing them. And now we're all on Etsy trying to sell our wares or whatever. And now it's like, well, what happened to that hobby?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a hobby that you keep just to yourself?
No.
Yeah.
Well, kind of. I kind of do. I actually kind of do. Now, honestly, yeah. And I probably should monetize it so I can justify it.
No,
And maybe
hobbies do
that's my
not need to be justified.
and maybe that's my problem. Like maybe that's my problem because that's my mentality sometimes. Like, oh my gosh, I need to make some money so I can justify what I've done here. But I love to thrift. I love to go to estate sales. I love to go to the antique store. And um I mean, Justin gets on to me about it sometimes, but I mean, I just love going and looking through other people's stuff.
I like doing that too. Maybe we should do that together more often
I mean,
without justifying it, just because.
I know.
Just because.
And usually I have a hard time walking away. I usually only go on 50% off day, but that's probably if I were to say I have a hobby like where I'm not trying to monetize anything. I'm not trying to buy stuff to resell it usually. If anything, I'm trying to buy stuff to put in my own home. You know, I love to go to estate sales.
Yeah.
It is like one of my favorite things.
Well, I think let's recap up to this point, first of all, because we don't have
Yeah.
much time left. But it's kind of like, okay, first of all, if you think that you love doing something, number one, you do not have to justify it. So I'm going to go backwards for a second. You
Yeah.
don't have to justify a hobby. I think even the wedding planning thing, it was like, I need to justify why I'm doing this to help people for free. And plus, it's my time. So I should get paid for it, right? You
Right.
shouldn't always, no, in life, you should not always get paid for your time. That is what a true job is for. That is what employment is for. Employment is not the same thing as enjoyment, even though sometimes autocorrect
Correct.
will switch those things, and maybe that's the message in this moment. Um, and the other piece of it is like, if you are going to go full send in on something, remember, are those trains parallel? Are they crashing? What does that look like? Because if you are going to go in full send and everything else is parallel and it's aligned, then go for it. But
Yes.
like become the thistle and twig and like go all in because it becomes successful. But go through all the steps to make sure you realize what that means on the other side, right? There's going to be the building season, there's going to be the sacrifice season, and as long as you think and it's worth it and you've already weighed all those options and you've thought about them all, then you should 100% make that side hustle more than a side hustle. And if not, maybe it should just be for enjoyment,
Yeah,
not
absolutely. And I
employment.
think, and just the terminology, you think side hustle. Hustle is part of that whole phrase and concept.
Yep.
because you are hustling a little bit, and you might some folks might have like a negative connotation with that word, but um, yeah, it is a little bit of a hustle, both physically and I guess mentally, and just trying to, I don't know, Megan, help me here. What am I trying to say? Like it is a hustle because it's in addition to everything else that you're already
Yeah.
doing.
Once again, you have to decide what your sacrifice is. Are you going to hustle hard and do your time and work on it so that it gets up and moving faster? Because if so, then that's what a side hustle is. Like you're spending other hours and moments of your time that could be doing something that's completely separate or with your friends or with your family. That is the hustle. And there is no success without hustle. I mean, let's be honest. All those people out there can
True.
tell you that they didn't do that, but what you don't, those are their highlight reels. And what you don't see is the behind the scenes of them doing all the extra work and even the editing on their posts before they have social media managers, or even like all of the paperwork that was there before, or their finances. I mean, the hustle is unavoidable no matter what, whether it's a side, whether it's your normal everyday. Hustle is just there, and so you have to decide if it's worth it or not.
Yeah. And unfortunately, sometimes it takes you trying it before you actually figure that out.
Yeah, well, we all know you got to try something before you know, right? And you might as well try a few things, maybe not all at the same time, but
Or all of them. It's fine.
or all the things.
Yeah. Or all the things.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now we know. Make a decision. Are your trains parallel or not? Employment, enjoyment are not interchangeable. They are not, because the thing is
And
you
they
can really
don't,
enjoy your
yeah, they don't always go together, but sometimes they can. That
right.
sometimes they can. But I mean, for something to bring just pure joy, I think it's easier to keep and preserve that pure joy when money has nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
When the money is not involved. Like I understand, like the money is kind of the icing on the cake, but it comes out an expense, just like you mentioned earlier. So what are you
Yeah.
willing to trade for that? And sometimes it's just better to keep it pure joy, no money involved.
Yeah, because the minute you start relying on that thing to pay your bills, it like enjoyment typically means there's no strings attached, you know?
Right. Right.
So, and that can happen in employment, but enjoyment without employment has no strings attached. There's no money expectations, there's no dependency. It's purely something that just makes you happy. And I think that we all deserve those little moments outside of um I don't know, jobs, side hustles, gigs, whatever it may be.
Life. I sometimes my husband, the love he has for golf, sometimes I just wish, I could find like just a small portion of that. And maybe it won't last all day, but
I
one day.
agree. And they completely, both our husbands play golf and they go out there and it's for pure enjoyment. They're
Pure.
neither one of them, I think, have the expectation to go monetize it or become pro, not at this point of our lives, right? And
No.
maybe we should have them on the podcast just so they can like teach us
And
their
to
ways.
teach us.
How do you find a hobby without any expectation?
Oh no, my husband will go play golf in the worst of weather. And when he comes back, he's just so happy. And he's like, yeah, it was great. We just, I even
And
played well. I think it was because I just didn't care because the weather was so terrible. I thought,
yeah, like it doesn't really rain on the golf course, is what my husband says. It rains all around us, but not on the golf course. It was beautiful. It was great. I played great.
I've heard
90
that
degrees
too.
outside. That so there's another lesson in this. Like husbands know how to not ruin side like hobbies. They don't turn hobbies into hustles. We should
Yeah.
this is their calling.
Or at least our husbands don't. That's
True.
for
Very
sure.
true.
That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Or at least, no one tries to ruin golf.
Well, Salem, what's your takeaways from this?
No, I think it's great to have like moments where we can look back and laugh at some of the things that we've tried and tested and done and just experimented with because as interesting as it was to do the whole wedding planning business, you would have never known that it wasn't your thing if you hadn't tried it.
Yeah.
Like you never would have known. Like, yes, you would have been like, oh, I'm super passionate about this. Yeah, I can help people sometimes. And you would have always had that in the back of your mind. Oh man, what if? And you did it and you tried it. So
Yeah.
that's what I find value in. Like, yeah, we tried it, you tried it, and it didn't work out. And now we can completely eliminate that from our mind ever attempting that again,
Yeah.
and we can just look at those Instagram posts and those Pinterest boards and our friends who are getting married and say, "Oh my gosh, that is beautiful, and I'm so happy you had a wonderful day," and not thinking another thought about it.
Yeah. Amen to that. I agree. I have no other closing statements because what you just said hit the nail on the head.
Oh,
Um,
good.
yeah, I love it. So, hey, it's great to have hobbies. It's great to turn them into your life and your passions. Um, as long as you know the sacrifice and you've gone through it. I think
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
where we leave
When
it.
when you're trying to make a little bit of extra cash from it. Otherwise, like you were saying, let's just preserve it and keep it for pure joy. No
Yeah,
obligations.
agree. So we need to set a date to go thrifting.
I will let you know. I get their emails. They email me
Hobby.
anytime there's a estate sale coming up, and I always preview the pictures. So I'll let you know the next good one.
Can't wait. I can't wait. Well,
Good.
I
Till next
think,
time.
yeah, you're right. Until next time.
Talk to you later.
See.